Today we're doing another novel versus adaptation. Today is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which is the original title. The film was a pretty faithful adaptation of the novel. Although there were lots of little changes, most of it were to cut it for time. Some changes rearranged the order in which things happen. Like in the book, Harry hears the Voldemort story before he goes to Diagon Alley, whereas in the movie, he doesn't hear it until after he's been to Ollivander's and bought his wand, and Ollivander told him that, Voldemort gave him his scar. Other things that were changed were locations. Like in the book, Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Malfoy were given detention and had to go into the Forbidden Forest after they were caught after hours in the astronomy tower, whereas in the movie it was Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Malfoy who were caught at Hagrid's hut. One change that definitely made Hagrid's character look better in the movie than it did in the book was that Harry and Hermione weren't caught, trying to save him by getting rid of his dragon for him. In the book, they wrote Ron's brother, Charlie, the one who works with dragons. They arranged a rendezvous, carried a dangerous dragon across the campus at night and up a tower so he could be taken away, and then they get caught and get detention. And in the book, Hagrid says nothing. He doesn't step up. He doesn't go, well, the kids were only out trying to help me. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I can understand that, in their world, they probably still would have got detention anyway, because they're like, you're 11. Why are you still shouldn't have taken it upon yourself to do this? But he is a grown man, and he should have, took responsibility for his actions and the fact that it was his dragon that had these kids out late at night. But in the movie, it was, they found out about the dragon. Dumbledore was the one who arranged to have it brought to Romania. They were just caught talking to him at his hut after hours. One major change between the novel and adaptation that was small in itself but had a huge impact on the film plot-wise was Harry and Professor Quirrell's first interaction when they met at the Leaky Cauldron. In the book, when Harry walks in and everybody realizes he's Harry Potter, a whole bunch of people comes around and shakes his hand, and Professor Quirrell is one of them, and he might have shook his hand twice. Whereas in the movie, when they first meet at the Leaky Cauldron, he makes a big, a kind of a big deal of not shaking his hand, like, I don't want to do that. And so in the end, when Harry touches him, it's for the first time. It's not like, well, if he couldn't touch Harry, then why did he shake his hand at the Leaky Cauldron? So I can understand him not knowing, but it should burn him. But anyway, character-wise, everyone was the same, though Hermione was a little more annoying in the book. In the movie, she comes off as a know-it-all. In the book, she comes off as a nosy, bossy little know-it-all. She was constantly trying to make Harry and Ron do what she wanted them to do, like make them do what she wanted them to do. And it really got on my nerves. When she got locked in the bathroom with the troll, I didn't feel sorry for her at all. I kind of felt like it's what she deserved. But after that incident, she calmed down a lot, and I ended up liking her better. So what's the verdict? Novel or adaptation? I have to say with this one, it's a draw. I don't really like one more than the other. Like I said before, it's a pretty faithful adaptation. Straightforward, not too many changes. So it's pretty much the same for me. Today I'm doing another novel versus adaptation, this time for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Just like Sorcerer's Stone, it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the book, with most of the changes made to cut it for time, which is strange to say since it comes in at well over 2.5 hours. But watching the movie after you read the book, you can see where all of the extraneous scenes were cut as it jumps right into the action. A scene that's in the book, but not in the theatrical cut of the film, but you can find it in ABC Family's, or shall I now say Freeform's, extended cut. It is when Harry first takes flu powder and ends up in Borgin and Burke's instead of Diagon Alley. He sees Lucius Malfoy for the very first time, and Lucius is there selling a long list of dark magic items that he needs to get rid of because the Ministry of Magic is leading a whole bunch of raids into wizards' homes looking for dark magic items, and it's led by Arthur Weasley. One detail not emphasized in the movie is the reason why Filch's cat was targeted. It's because Filch is a squib. Squib is basically the magical version of a Muggle-born. It's when a non-magical person is born into a wizard family. Harry discovers this when he's in Filch's office and he sees an application for some magical correspondence courses that Filch is sending away for. So it explains Filch's utter hate for the children. They can do something that he can't. And it also explains all of the victims of Basilisk. The first victim was the cat of a squib, and all the rest of the victims were Muggle-born. A funny scene that is in the book, but not in the film, is how Harry discovers how to work Tom Riddle's diary. He had it for days, and even though it was empty, he couldn't bring himself to get rid of it because he felt like he might have known Tom Riddle personally for some reason. Then, Professor Lockhart decides that, after all these attacks on the students, the school needed a morale booster, so he decorates it for Valentine's Day and has a whole bunch of dwarves come in dressed as Cupids, and they go around passing out the Valentines to the students throughout the day, even interrupts classes. One dwarf accosts Harry in the crowded hallway and begins to sing a very embarrassing Valentine to Harry. And when Harry tries to get away, the dwarf sort of, grabs hold of him, catches him, holds him there to finish singing his song, and Harry's book bag rips and breaks. All of his stuff spills everywhere, and his ink spills all over everything. But the diary remains clear, as if no ink touched it at all. So he takes it back to his room. He experiments with dropping ink blots onto it that disappears, and after that he writes in the book, and then the book starts to write back. This film was so faithful. A lot of the dialogue was word for word. The main difference was in the climax scene. So in the book, the Chamber of Secrets is very dark and is pretty much lit only by Harry's wand. In the movie, it's brightly lit by an unknown light source, since the magical world does not have electricity. And also, Slytherin's statue is just his head, whereas in the book it's full body statue, really tall up to the top of the cavern, and Ginny's body is sort of lying between the feet. Also, in the movie, when Harry is running from the basilisk, he runs all throughout the chamber and through the pipes, and sort of, takes him all over. Whereas in the book, he pretty much stays in the same spot, and it's just Tom Riddle, screaming to the basilisk, who is now blind, to use his nose and find Harry and kill him like 4 or 5 times. There's like paragraphs of him yelling at this thing. So this is a lot more action oriented in the movie. And also, finally, Fawkes saves Harry with his tears. In the book, he heals his wound before Harry kills the memory of Tom Riddle in the diary. But in the book, they made it the very last thing, I guess, to sort of, not to smush up the climactic moments. Overall, a good adaptation. Which do I prefer, the novel or the film? I gotta say it's the same as with the Sorcerer's Stone, and it's a tie. Because they're pretty much, the novel and the film are pretty much the same. I like them both the same. Today on Novel versus Adaptation, we're looking at Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Unlike the first two film adaptations, this one takes a lot of departures from the novels. A lot of plot points were either changed, not mentioned, or simply not explained in the movie. One of the main plot points that they did not explain or didn't bring up in the movie was the storyline that followed Harry's father and his friends at Hogwarts. James Potter and Sirius Black were two of the smartest wizards in Hogwarts. They had two other friends in their group, Remus Lupin and Peter Pettigrew. Remus was a werewolf. When he was younger, he was bit by a werewolf. This was probably, he was at least younger than 10 because, you know, by 11 is when you start Hogwarts, and he was already a werewolf by the time he started Hogwarts. The only people who knew he was a werewolf at Hogwarts was Professor Dumbledore and Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, the school nurse. They actually planted the Whomping Willow for Remus. They put it over a passage, secret passage that led out of Hogwarts into Hogsmeade up into the Shrieking Shack, so it could, you know, cover up a place, you know, Remus's hiding place. It's where he went each month to turn into a werewolf. The shrieks that people heard from the village that people heard were not from ghosts. It was Remus turning into a werewolf. They did this so they could protect him, protect the students, and he could continue going to school. Well, James and Sirius, being so smart, eventually figured it out. And they decided, you know, since they were such good friends with Remus, instead of having him go through this change and go through that time alone, they were going to make that potion to become animagi, I don't know how to pronounce that, but animagi, so they can be with him through this change, because other animals can hang with a werewolf, but humans can't. He would automatically attack them. So it took them a couple of years, but by their 5th year, they came up with a potion that turned James into a stag, Sirius into a dog, and Peter Pettigrew into a rat. If you remember in the movie, Harry's Patronus was a stag, you know, like his father. Harry also came into possession of the Marauder's Map, which was written by Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Franz, which were Remus, Peter, Sirius, and James, respectively. That was their nicknames, you know, based on their animagi forms. When once they became animagi and they were going around, you know, with Remus when he was a werewolf, they decided to sneak out and roam the grounds and go around Hogwarts and go around, you know, go everywhere they could. They felt like it was safe for them to do that because James and Sirius were these big animals, and they thought they were strong enough to control Remus. So since they went everywhere under the cover of darkness without anyone knowing, they knew Hogwarts better than anyone else, and they created the Marauder's Map. This is how Remus was able to know exactly what Harry had when he saw the map, and he knew how to work it because he wrote it. Did he mention that? No. Besides leaving out how Harry's father directly influenced the plot of the story, the movie also left out Ron and Hermione's almost book-long feud. Hermione bought her cat Crookshanks from this magic pet store after it tried to attack Ron's pet rat Scabbers. Now we know Scabbers is Peter Pettigrew, but throughout the book, you know, when you first read it, you had no idea. And the fact that she kept getting mad at Ron when he insisted on protecting his pet from her murderous cat just seemed completely irrational to me. There's another major change to the plot. In the movie, Harry's broom is destroyed in the very first Quidditch match, and he doesn't get a replacement until the end of the movie when Sirius sends him the firebolt. But in the book, he gets the firebolt right away, and it's before we know that Sirius is innocent. Hermione, the ever insufferable know-it-all and tattletale, goes and tells McGonagall about the firebolt. Now Harry has no idea where he gets it from, and McGonagall comes and takes his firebolt away. This is just one more thing that led to, you know, another reason for Ron not to like Hermione, and now Harry hated her too. And frankly, so did I. So which one do I prefer? The book or the adaptation? This one is a hard one for me because this book is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series, yet a lot of the changes in the movie I liked better than how they appeared in the book. It changed the flow of the story, and it also gave it a much darker tone than the first two adaptations, which I think is appropriate for a story connected to so many murders. So I'm going to have to say that I like the movie better than the book. I wish that they were able to, the movie had included all of the story on Harry's father, but with it coming in at 2 hours and 20 minutes, there just wasn't enough room for it. Today on Novel versus Adaptation, we're looking at Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It's the fourth book in the Harry Potter series, and it is the first of some really long books. Like, it's seriously huge. The Triwizard Tournament does not start until like about 228 pages in. It's the 19th chapter. So basically the whole main plot of the book, you know, following this tournament, does not begin until the length of a normal book has already passed. There are a lot of characters and subplots in the book that did not make it into the movie. A few of them are Hermione's crusade to save the house elves. Rita Skeeter is a unregistered animagus, and she can turn herself into a beetle in order to spy on other people's conversations and, you know, put them in her tabloid articles. Then there's Bertha Jorkins. She's this missing employee from the Ministry of Magic, and later we discovered that Voldemort killed her after getting, you know, information from her about the Triwizard Tournament and about Barty Crouch Jr. Ludo Bagman, who was Bertha's boss at the Ministry of Magic, he was in charge of magical games or something, and he also was a compulsive gambler who cheated the Weasley twins out of their World Cup bet winnings. They won their bet and he gave them fake money. When this was discovered, Harry gives the Weasley twins his Triwizard Tournament winnings, because if you win, not only do you get the cup, but you also get like 1,000 gold galleons. And he gave it to the Weasley twins because he did not want the money after he witnessed the death and fall of Voldemort. He wanted nothing to do with that money, so he gave it to the Weasley twins. Sirius was a huge presence in the book. He wrote Harry often. At one point, he was writing him every day, and he even moved into Hogsmeade to be closer to Harry when things get dangerous for him. Then there's Barty Crouch Jr. He got out of prison years earlier. His father broke him out because his mother was dying, and it was her dying wish that her son would go free. So he, broke him out and was holding him, like, I guess using the Imperial curse against him and making him stay under control in the house. And that's what Voldemort found out from Bertha Jorkins, and he freed Barty after, I guess it was like Barty had become free at the World Cup tournament. After that, Voldemort made his way to Barty, freed him from the curse, from the Imperious curse from his father, and he went on to Hogwarts as Mad-Eye Moody. Another thing that the main things that's left out though is after he gives this long confession to Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, and Harry, Fudge comes in with the Dementors and have the Dementors give him the Dementor's kiss, which basically sucks his soul out of his body, so he can't give testimony at a court in front of people saying Voldemort's back and I helped it happen. Because Harry was in the Triwizard Tournament, he didn't have to take end of the year exams. It was not a pass on education though, because he was so much younger than the other champions. He had to learn a lot of different spells to just get him through the tournament. He had to learn the spell that caused his broom from the castle to the field when he was fighting the dragons, and he also had to learn a whole bunch of hexes and defensive spells to get through the maze at the end. Something else Harry learned that wasn't in the movie was how to defend himself from the Imperious Curse. Mad-Eye Moody, or I should say Barty Crouch Jr., not only showed the 3 unforgivable curses to the kids, he performed them on them to show them how to defend themselves against the curses. Harry was the only kid in class who was able to successfully defend himself from the Imperious Curse. So when he ended up in the graveyard with Voldemort, and Voldemort tried to use that curse against him and try to make him do stuff, Harry was able to defend him and not do what Voldemort was trying to make him do. When you add that to the fact that he, for the second time, successfully avoided Voldemort's killing curse, it left Voldemort a little bit shaken. Okay, so which one do I prefer? The book or the adaptation? I'm going to have to say, even though it was really long, spacing out the Triwizard Tournament tasks for months in between, I am going to say I prefer the book to the movie adaptation. And that's mainly because of Harry's relationship with Sirius. This was the closest Harry's ever had to having a parent in this book, his relationship with Sirius, especially with him needing someone to talk to as he's trying to avoid getting killed, as it happens every year. But this time he actually had a parent figure to turn to and get advice from, and he even had one of those parent teenager things where Sirius was writing him and telling him, don't do this, stay on the grounds, listen to your teachers, and he was like, how dare he tells me to do all that stuff after all the stuff he did when he was in school. But I really like that aspect of the book.
Today I'm going to be comparing the novel versus the adaptation, or in this case, the movie. So, with Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, they not only trim the fat, they cut out some muscle. This movie flies by after reading the 800-page book. So much was left out. Starting with, Ron and Hermione were prefects. Ron makes the Gryffindor Quidditch team as keeper. He starts off lousy, but then he wins the Gryffindor Quidditch Cup for the Gryffindor team. Harry is given a lifetime ban from Quidditch, as well as Fred and George were removed from the team, and all of their brooms were locked in Umbridge's office. It was Moody, not Sirius, who gave Harry a picture of the Order. The movie was a lot nicer to Luna. In the movie, she was just aloof. In the book, she was constantly saying stuff that got her ridiculed to her face, and Luna was indignant when she was challenged. They actually go see Ron's father in the magical hospital, where they run into Gilderoy Lockhart and Neville's parents. All 3 of them are in the permanently damaged by spells ward. Harry and Cho goes on what starts off as this cute Valentine's Day date in Hogsmeade, but ends up going horribly wrong because of Hermione. Harry did an interview with Rita Skeeter that was published in the Quibbler after the Azkaban breakout. Once Umbridge finds out about it, she forbids everyone from reading it. Of course, because she does this, everyone in the school reads it, and after this, everyone starts to believe Harry's story. It wasn't Cho who snitched on Dumbledore's army. It was her friend, Marietta, and she didn't even need a truth serum. She went and she told Umbridge all on her own, and Hermione had jinxed the sign-up sheet so that if anyone snitched on them, the word sneak would be written across their face in boils or some other horrible blemish. So she had to walk around looking like that. When Dumbledore is removed from Hogwarts as headmaster, his office locks Umbridge out and refuses to let her in, which is why she has to continue to use her teacher's office as her office even after she becomes headmaster. Harry did not see Snape's memories by performing a shield spell on him. He saw them because Dumbledore took memories he did not want Harry to have access to and put them in Dumbledore's Pensieve. And one day when he was out of the office, he left Harry alone in his office, and Harry went and purposely went into the Pensieve and saw the memories for himself. So he saw the complete memory of James and Sirius torturing Snape. It was Dobby who found the Room of Requirement, not Neville. Hogwarts have house elves. Dobby works there now. Hermione continued her crusade to try to free the house elves by leaving knitted clothes around the Gryffindor common room so they would pick them up and be free. So the house elves was just avoiding cleaning the Gryffindor common room, and Dobby had to do it all by himself. Kreacher plays a bigger part in the book. It was him who told the Malfoys and therefore Voldemort that Sirius was important to Harry. Neville could have been the chosen one. He fit all the same parameters from the prophecy that Harry did, but Voldemort chose Harry because Harry was a half-blood and Neville was a pure-blood. That quiet and peaceful talk that Harry and Dumbledore had at the end of the movie was a lie. Harry tore apart Dumbledore's office and was screaming and yelling at him, and Dumbledore sat by quietly and allowed him to do it until Harry calmed down and they could talk. Dumbledore rescued Umbridge from the Centaurs. It was an awesome feat because they were already pissed at him for hiring one of their own to replace Trelawney as a divination teacher, and they were attacking all humans who walked into the Forbidden Forest. Most of what was cut from the movie was days before school where they spent time cleaning Sirius's house and a month-by-month account of just how horrible Snape and Umbridge were. Also, there was no big confrontation between McGonagall and Umbridge over Harry's detention. As a matter of fact, nobody makes a big deal out of it in the book, and Harry got detention from Umbridge a lot. So which do I prefer, the novel or the adaptation? It really is a toss-up because the plot of the Order of the Phoenix is enough to make my blood boil. But after reading the 800-page book, I have to say I prefer the adaptation. Less torture from Snape and Umbridge. Plus, I do prefer how some things were adapted. I like the way they adapted Snape's memories. I preferred the climax of the movie to how they wrote it in the book. And I prefer movie Mrs. Weasley to book Mrs. Weasley because book Mrs. Weasley got on my damn nerves. I also prefer movie Hermione because book Hermione was a nag. Snape is an a-hole in both instances, but less of a one in the movie. They were also kinder to Sirius in the movie. In the book, he comes off as reckless and immature.
Today, we continue the Harry Potter novel versus adaptation series with Half-Blood Prince. The main difference between the book and the movie is tone. The movie is darker and more subdued. And you know how I complain about book Hermione and Mrs. Weasley versus movie Hermione and Mrs. Weasley? Well, movie Harry comes off a whole lot better than book Harry. First of all, the movie establishes right away that Dumbledore wants Harry to be collected by Slughorn, and Harry goes right along. The book doesn't establish this fact until halfway through, and Harry spent most of the time avoiding Slughorn. Harry and Dumbledore just mesh better in the movie. In the book, Harry is always running to him or one of the Order about his suspicions about Snape or Malfoy, and it causes some conflict between him and Dumbledore. Speaking of his suspicions, Harry is obsessed with Malfoy. Like Mariah Carey, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" Obsessed. Harry would run back to his room between every single class to look at the Marauders map so that he could find Malfoy so he can follow him. And when that didn't work, he had his house elf Creature, accompanied by Dobby of course, follow Malfoy. Oh, how is Creature Harry's house elf? Harry was Sirius's sole heir. He got all his money and his house, which made Harry even richer. The beginning of the book wasn't him flirting with some waitress. It was him at home with the Dursleys, and Dumbledore shows up there to tell him this. And to make sure that Harry really inherited Sirius's house, they summoned Creature, and Harry gave him a command because they knew that if Harry truly inherited Sirius's house, Creature had to obey him. There's also a part at the beginning of the book where the Minister of Magic has a meeting with the Prime Minister to update him on everything going on in the magical world and Voldemort. In the book, the Death Eaters do not come to the Burrow at Christmas time and have a duel with Harry and Ginny, then burn the Burrow down. In the book, Romilda Vane is a fourth year who gives Harry some chocolate cauldrons that he tosses in his trunk until he accidentally tosses them out one day, and Ron takes it for one of his birthday presents and eats them, and that's how he gets the love potion. In the book, there are way more memories regarding Voldemort. They start with his grandfather, mother, and uncle, then move on to him meeting Dumbledore, then Voldemort meeting his uncle, then Voldemort with Slughorn, then Voldemort with Hepzibah Smith, where he sees her with Slytherin's locket and Hufflepuff's gold cup. Then finally, when he comes back to Hogwarts and asks Dumbledore for the position as the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Because of those memories, Harry knew that the Horcruxes were the locket, the cup, something of Ravenclaw's, and Nagini. He went into book 7 knowing what to look for. Unlike the movie, you see their Defense Against the Dark Arts classes with Snape. After Harry uses Sectum Sempra on Malfoy, Snape gives him detention for the rest of the year. And Harry goes and hides the book in the room of requirement with every intention of going back and getting it. You see them getting apparition lessons to learn how to apparate. This is important because after Harry and Dumbledore leave the cave, Dumbledore is too weak to apparate them back to Hogsmeade, and Harry had to do it for them. And you're not supposed to, legally of course, because you're not supposed to apparate before you turn 17, and Harry was just 16. In the book, after Dumbledore is murdered, there is a huge fight between the Death Eaters and the members of the Order and some of the kids from the DA. Namely, Hermione, Ginny, Neville, and Luna. After the fight, we learned that Tonks and Lupin had a secret relationship that Lupin was keeping at bay because of his being a werewolf, unlike the film where they were together out in the open. For most of the book, Tonks was miserable and Harry thought it was because she was in love with Sirius. Right reason, wrong marauder. You get to see Dumbledore's funeral where mermaid and centaurs attend, along with all the people we've been introduced to in the magical world, including Hagrid's half-brother, Grop, who's much more civilized now, and even Umbridge, who's still employed by the Ministry of Magic. In the book, Harry and Ginny date for a few weeks, but he breaks up with her at Dumbledore's funeral because he has to go after the Horcruxes. So, which do I prefer, the novel or the adaptation? I'm going to have to go for the adaptation yet again. I prefer the tone of the movie to the book. I also like the more cooperative Harry of the movie. Plus, the movie cuts out the Snape torture completely. I think the movie was able to do something the book wasn't allowed to do. Follow Malfoy. The book is told from Harry's point of view, so the only way to know what Draco was up to is to have Harry obsess over it. The adaptation moves some things around and puts some things together that fit perfectly, like Lavender being there when Ron says Hermione in the hospital wing, and Ron making it snow while staring at an angry Lavender. All in all, the movie was one of my favorites of the franchise.
So today's novel versus adaptation is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Because there are 2 movies, I am splitting this up into 2 videos. So today, we will compare the first 2/3 of the book to Deathly Hallows Part 1. To continue from Half-Blood Prince, book Harry and movie Harry are very different. Movie Harry is very take charge and decisive, whereas book Harry waddles back and forth between being mad at Dumbledore for leaving them with nothing to go on and pushing Ron and Hermione to do whatever it is he wants to do. In all of the books, there is a theme of gaslighting Harry. Harry has one major belief, and everyone tries to convince him he is wrong. And by the end of the book, you discover Harry was right all along. Some major beliefs Harry had was that there was a Horcrux at Hogwarts, that he needed to go back to Godric's Hollow, and that the Deathly Hallows were important to his fight against Voldemort. But at every turn, he was blocked by Hermione. I really don't like book Hermione. Some other differences from the book are, at the beginning, when they come to move Harry, they don't all head to the burrow. They all head to 7 different places where they would take a port key to the burrow. Harry and Hagrid head to Tonk's parents' place where he met her mother for the first time, Bellatrix and Narcissa's sister, Andromeda. And she looked just like Bellatrix, which had Harry instinctively trying to jinx her. They actually celebrate Harry's birthday the day before the wedding with the birthday dinner. That is when the Minister of Magic shows up with Dumbledore's bequest. He and Harry have an antagonistic relationship, so it didn't go so well. He was basically trying to figure out why Dumbledore gave them what he gave them, and what it all meant. But Harry, Ron, and Hermione gave up nothing. After Creature tells the story of how he was supposed to destroy the locket for Regulus, Harry gives Creature the fake locket as a symbolic gesture. This makes Creature warm up to Harry, and he begins to clean the house and cook for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. When Harry goes to Umbridge's office and he sees Mad Eye's magical eye stuck in the door, he removes it and takes it with him because he wants to give him a proper burial. After she takes the locket from Umbridge, Hermione replaces it with a dummy locket so Umbridge wouldn't realize it was missing and come looking for it. Then, when they are escaping, Harry leads all of the Muggleborns out of the Ministry so they can escape with their families. When Harry and Hermione go back to Godric's Hollow, they take Polyjuice Potion and go underneath the invisibility cloak. And yet, Bathilda/Nagini still knew it was them. Most of the differences between the book and the movie is that there are weeks and sometimes months between each plot point. Like when they left the Love Goods, they were not captured immediately. Lots of time went by before they were captured and taken to Malfoy Manor. And that was because Harry lost his cool from being gaslit by his friends all the time and said the name Voldemort, even though he knew that there was a curse on his name that would break all protection charms and bring snatchers right to them just for saying his name. When they escaped Malfoy Manor, Dean Thomas was among them. He had been picked up at about the same time as Harry, Ron, and Hermione and had been traveling with Griphook. He was on the run because he wasn't sure if he was Muggle-born or half-blood because his father left when he was little. When fighting Wormtail to get out of the dungeon, Wormtail's silver hand began to choke Harry. Harry said to him, "You owe me. I saved your life." So he stopped choking Harry. Then Wormtail's silver hand turned on himself and began choking himself until he died. Grindelwald did not willingly give up Dumbledore's name to Voldemort. He died trying to keep him from finding out who had the Elder Wand. I'm going to hold off saying whether I preferred the novel or the adaptation until I do Deathly Hallows Part 2. So today we conclude the Harry Potter novel versus adaptation series by comparing the last third of the Deathly Hallows, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, to the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Again, a lot of the in-between time was cut out of the movie. In the book, there was weeks of planning the Gringotts robbery with Griphook. Also, there was a recurring theme in the book of people asking Harry exactly what it was that he was doing and him telling them that Dumbledore said not to tell anyone what they were up to. After Ron's brother Bill tried to get Harry to admit that they were planning something surrounding Gringotts, he warned Harry about making a deal with Griphook. Goblins were very different from wizards and didn't trust them at all. Basically, he told him not to trust Griphook, which turned out to be spot-on advice. At Gringotts, it was Harry, not Hermione, who had the idea to get on the dragon to escape. After they jumped off the dragon, when Harry saw into Voldemort's mind, he saw that Voldemort was going to check on all of his Horcruxes to see if they were all safe. So they knew they would have some time before he would make it to Hogwarts, where the last Horcrux was, the one that Voldemort felt was the safest. Aberforth was the barman at the Hogshead Inn. Whether this was a new development or whether he was there all along was unclear to me. Neville, Ginny, and Luna were the new leaders of Dumbledore's army at Hogwarts. The Death Eaters tried to imprison Neville's grandmother, but she got away and sent him a letter telling him how proud she was of him. Although Luna was the one who told Harry about the lost diadem of Ravenclaw, it was Harry who figured out that he needed to ask a ghost where it was. McGonagall's and Snape's fight did not happen in front of the whole school, although it did happen in front of the other heads of houses. All of the students did not stay and fight. They apparated out all of the underage students and any of-age students who did not want to stay and fight. But little Colin Creevey snuck back in to fight and eventually died. Grop was there to fight on behalf of Hogwarts. When Voldemort killed Snape, it wasn't in the boathouse, it was in the shrinking shack. There were things in Snape's memories that explained things that happened earlier in the book. It was Dumbledore's portrait in the headmaster's office that encouraged Snape to give Harry's correct day of removal from Privet Drive to Voldemort so that Voldemort would trust Snape. Earlier in the book, Hermione had taken the portrait of Phineas Black from Grimmauld Place so that he couldn't spy on them for Snape because he also had a portrait in the headmaster's office. Well, he was anyway, because it was him that told Snape they were in the Forest of Dean, and that was how he knew to put the Sword of Gryffindor there. We also learned from Snape's memories that Petunia had written Dumbledore and had asked to be admitted to Hogwarts. There was a long, extended talk between Harry and Dumbledore where he goes through everything with Harry, including what happened to his sister. The climax scene was Harry and Voldemort walking around each other in a circle, basically with Harry talking at Voldemort, until finally they each cast their spell at each other, with Voldemort ended up dead and Harry ended up with the Elder Wand. Harry repairs his wand with the Elder Wand before putting the Elder Wand back in the grave with Dumbledore. So, which do I prefer, the novel or the adaptations? You know what's coming, right? Mainly because of the decisive take charge Harry, I prefer the adaptations. I prefer part 2 over part 1 overall. When you have a book as long as the Deathly Hallows, some things tend to get repetitive. The movie cuts out all repetition. Sometimes cuts the issues altogether. Like Harry being right about the Horcrux being at Hogwarts after his friends shoot the idea down several times. Or that the Deathly Hallows was even real despite the fact that he owned one. Speaking of the invisibility cloak, it became a crutch and they used it way too often in the book. Whereas in the movies, they used it like once. And most importantly, after 8 movies, the climax was more dynamic than just walking around in a circle talking. There was a lot of things that translated well visually. So, what do you think of these adaptations? Were they well done or were they rushed? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.